How are you all doing today? Welcome back to On the Ball and welcome back to another transfer update for today. We've got some big names to talk about and we're going to start off in the Premier League talking about David Raya, as Arsenal have submitted an opening bid for David Raya to Brentford last night. The proposal is worth £20 million fixed fee plus £3 million in add-ons. Raya told Brentford that he wants to move as personal terms have already been agreed, and Romano's given us an update on that today, and he says Arsenal are optimistic and confident to reach an agreement with Brentford for David Raya after a bid submitted on Thursday. Raya wants to join Arsenal and he's insisting to make the deal happen. I mean, how annoyed would you be if he ends up going there for like 20-25 million?
I would be, but apparently the offer's set to be rejected. They bid 20 million plus add-ons, and apparently Brentford have turned that down. So Arsenal are going to have to improve that offer, and whether they're going to look at that situation and think, oh, we're really going to spend upwards of potentially 30 million on a backup goalkeeper right now, or is those funds better use in other elements of the squad? I mean, it'd be very interesting if they do push the boat out and really try and get Raya in with a bigger fee, because considering Ramsdale is quite well liked there, it would be a bit of a surprise to see them spend big money on a keeper who, in my opinion, is probably better than Ramsdale. But then again, any excuse to upgrade is not a bad one. So I wouldn't be mad if I was an Arsenal fan. I'd just be a bit surprised.
Yeah, I think this is Arteta being really ruthless in the market, to be honest. And as an Arsenal fan, you've got to be happy with the way they're conducting their business this summer. But I, for one, as a Tottenham fan, hope it doesn't happen, but we'll see what happens. Let's move on and let's talk about Nottingham Forest, as they have made a €25 million bid for Roma centre-back Roger Ibanez, as per Fabrizio Romano. I mean, this will be a really good move for Nottingham Forest. Yeah,
25 million for a centre-back who I think slots straight into their first team. I think he actually would suit the way Nottingham Forest like to play as well, with his defensive style. And I think that would go quite a way, because I think when you're staying in the Premier League, you always want to kind of establish yourself and kind of upgrade in key positions. And I think he would represent that. They did struggle last season to stay in the Premier League, and they kind of stayed up near later on with a few games to go. But I really think if they're signing players of the caliber of Ibanez, I think that'd be a massive improvement on what they've got.
Yeah, and he was rumoured earlier on to go to bigger clubs. He was rumoured to go to Tottenham. I think there were some other names in there as well. Are you surprised that maybe these Nottingham Forest links are coming?
No, just because of the power of the Premier League. The Premier League now, you see clubs the size of Forest can go to Roma and say, we'll put 25 million and get your centre-back. Like, that is how the finances are. We're seeing smaller clubs. Bournemouth are going to bigger clubs in Europe and bidding for their players. I remember they got Zaniolo last year as well, and they were very close to that. Like, that's just the climate right now, and however you like it, the bigger clubs in the other European leagues can't compete financially with the Premier League right now.
True. Next up, let's talk about Willian. This is a really interesting one, as Romano broke yesterday that Fulham winger Willian has agreed terms over a move to Saudi Arabian club Al Shabab. And he only just joined Fulham on a permanent deal, literally like in the last month. Like, what the hell is happening over here?
His head's been turned incredibly. I can't believe that after a few weeks of signing permanently, he's gone and had his head turned so quickly. It's like he hasn't even sat down in his seat yet, and all of a sudden he's turning his head looking for the more money.
Yeah, it's like going into a club and passing your medical and then just going to another club after accepting a deal, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Not the first time he's done it. He's the biggest snake, Willian. He's just a snake player.
But I've never seen someone join a club and then a few weeks later being like, oh, this club covering for me now, I better go there.
Yeah, I know. It's quite incredible if this actually comes off. It seems as though he's pushing for it as well. So that's even more snaky in a way, because like if an offer just came on the table and he was like, look, I want to discuss this with you. Can we talk about this? I know I've just joined, but this offer's crazy. Can we have this discussion? That's one thing. But he's like, nah, I'm leaving, mate. I want out. I've had this offer. It's more than your offer, even though I just joined you. Hadn't even played a game yet in my second spell, and he wants out, which would be. I think if that would happen, I mean, not that he would have any future deals in Premier League clubs anyway, but that probably people wouldn't want to deal with that for sure. But then again, I thought after the Arsenal thing, no Premier League club would want to deal with him, and he seemed to come back on his feet. So.
Well, he had a really good season last year for Fulham, let's be honest. And what kind of a fee do you think Fulham will get for this?
Can't be more than 5-10 million.
Well, so, I mean, in terms of Fulham, like the way they're seeing this, they got him for free just now. I mean, it's a quick 5 million for absolutely nothing, pretty
Yeah, it
much.
could be worse, I guess,
Yeah.
if they get money for him.
Next up, let's talk about Leon Goretzka. Sky Germany are reporting that Man United could set to make a stunning move for Bayern Munich midfielder Leon Goretzka, and I think this would be an insane move for Manchester United.
Yeah, I think this would be a better move than Amrabat, in my opinion. I think Goretzka, for me, is a very underrated midfielder. I think he's really good in all facets of the game. And I think he's kind of underappreciated at Bayern. For some reason, Tuchel hasn't taken his liking to him. I think before Tuchel, he was one of their most important players in the midfield. He was a big part of their team that won the Champions League not so long ago. So I think it would be a great signing for Man United. And him and Casemiro in midfield, backed up by Eriksen and Bruno and Mount, I think that's very good options.
Yeah, top player, Leon Goretzka. He really is. I was surprised that Bayern would let him go, to be honest, because I think he's influential over there. But let's move on and let's talk about James Ward-Prowse, as this is a really interesting story. West Ham's technical director, Tim Steindl, has blocked David Moyes' attempts to sign James Ward-Prowse. He's looking for cheaper alternatives, and Moyes is bemused by the transfer strategy after delivering a European trophy last season. It seems like every time West Ham are close to signing a player, something happens for them to not sign the player, and this is just the latest one on a long list. And there seems to be a big power struggle going on at West Ham with the new technical director Tim Steindl and David Moyes. We've even seen publications say that Moyes' future is all in the air, up in the air at the moment.
All is not well at West Ham. I think that's pretty clear to say. Even though they've just had, arguably, their best ever achievement in their history, winning the Conference League. Ever since then, it's just gone from like disaster to disaster. They can't get anything right. They can't get any signings through the door. Moyes' future was up in the air for the whole of last season. They decided not to kind of part ways and decided to stick with him, which is I can kind of understand because he's earned some credit in the bank with the European trophy. But for me, if West Ham really want to progress and want to get out of that mold of playing the way they are, like moving up to date with like how teams are playing in this modern era, I think Moyes is past his sell-by date in that case, and I think they need to move on if they want to progress. I think he's done a great job. It was a great time to leave on a high, and they didn't decide to do that. Now they're in this situation where I don't think the sporting director wants the players that Moyes wants. He wants to go in a more progressive direction, and Moyes is kind of stuck in his old ways. And I think it's best for the club if they just parted company with Moyes, in my opinion. But if they stick with him, I think it's not going to be long until his job's in trouble at the first sign of trouble.
Yeah, and it looks like one of these two people are going to have to leave the club for the club to progress, Tim Steindl and David Moyes. And if David Moyes is the one to go, it could be a bit of a blessing in disguise for West Ham. But, I mean, it's probably not in terms of because it's so late in the window.
Yeah, they should have done this at the end of last season.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on and let's talk about SOFYAN AMRABAT. We touched on Leon Goretzka to Manchester United before, but Romano is saying that AMRABAT not called up for Fiorentina's next game. Manchester United expected to open formal talks for AMRABAT soon as Fred and Donny van den Beek are close to leaving the club. AMRABAT wants Manchester United, and that has never changed, so they're already leaving him out of squads.
Yeah, so that's an indication the transfer is maybe drawing closer, which is interesting because we were just talking about Goretzka. I don't think they go for Goretzka and AMRABAT. They're probably going for one or the other. I would assume that Goretzka is probably a bit more expensive than SOFYAN AMRABAT. AMRABAT's probably a bit younger than Goretzka. It depends what they're looking for. I think Goretzka is more of a player who's good, who's very good at all facets, but he's got no one thing he's like an expert at, whereas AMRABAT's very, very good at kind of ball retention, press resistance. His passing's decent, but I think the other facets of his game aren't particularly fantastic, in my opinion. So I think Goretzka would probably be the best bet if I was a Man United manager. But AMRABAT, obviously, he's got a really good profile as well. And I think he would also add good quality depth to midfield. Depends who's the best price. But I think if AMRABAT's a bit cheaper, considering that this isn't a role necessarily that's going to guarantee a starting spot, maybe AMRABAT's the best bet.
Yeah, I was interested to hear these AMRABAT quotes when he was talking about his time working with Erik ten Hag, and this was at FC Utrecht, and he was saying that that he came up with a specific plan for him on the pitch to get the best out of him, and he seemed to really form a massive bond with Erik ten Hag. So that must be as well a lot of reasons why AMRABAT is maybe number one on their list. Next up, let's talk about Gianluca Scamacca once again. The fight for him in Italy is getting real, as Romano says that Atalanta are trying to hijack Inter's move for Gianluca Scamacca. West Ham are not happy with 24 million euros plus add-ons. Bid made by Inter today. Inter remain on their position. West Ham expect Atalanta to send an important proposal bigger than Inter's one, and the race is on for Scamacca.
If I was Scamacca, as much as you're more likely to maybe win the Scudetto with Inter Milan, I actually think he might be a bit more suited to Atalanta, how they play with their kind of attacking style of play. He has players around him. I feel like Inter, he would do all right at Inter, but how they play a lot more on the counter-attack. They have that strike partnership, which they tend to try and link up the play, but usually a lot of the time they're playing in the transitions, they're bursting into space, and I don't think Scamacca is, I think he can do it. I don't think that's his main strength. I think that his main strength is his technical ability in and around the penalty area, getting ball and players around him, and I actually think that's more suited to Atalanta. So I'd be very interested to see if he had offers on the table from both, which ones he chooses. But it's going to be hard to kind of turn down Inter Milan, knowing they just got to Champions League final and they're going to be more likely to challenge for a title. So I think it'd be more suited to Atalanta, but I see him going to Inter if given the choice.
Now we move on to the big story of the update, and that is the story that has been doing the rounds ever since the start of the window, and that is Harry Kane and Bayern Munich. That story that is not going away. Bayern Munich have set a deadline to Tottenham of midnight tonight to see what the resolution is going to be with Harry Kane. The latest updates on that is from James Ollie that Bayern Munich have sent an offer totaling of 120 million euros to Tottenham for Harry Kane. It is their final offer, and Miguel Delaney just relays that information and says Bayern Munich have made a bid for Harry Kane of over 100 million euros, but not yet reaching Levy's 100 million pounds. No, that's an old update, sorry. But we'll go with the one I just said before that, 120 million euros for Harry Kane. Do you think that gets accepted?
I think, yeah, I mean, that's around 103 million pounds with add-ons included. Does it get accepted? I think it does, to be honest. I've always thought if Bayern were able to muster up a figure, even if it's including add-ons, if they're realistic add-ons, that takes the overall figure to over 100 million, which is what Tottenham were looking for, then I think that this is actually something that Tottenham are really going to consider. I never thought that they were going to accept any bid under that, but I think 100 million is with 1 year left on his contract. I think you'd be silly not to at least consider it. And we know Kane wants to move. Bayern have been pushing very, very hard. It prevents him, from Tottenham's point of view, leaving on a free next summer, especially to a rival. And I think it allowed Tottenham the funds to reinforce this summer, as painful as it is. In terms of the balancing act, obviously you don't want to let him go for too cheaply, because then it's not worth it. And I do think even now Spurs are going to have more chance of getting Champions League football next season with Harry Kane in the team. But when it hits the 100 million pound mark, I think everyone has their price, and I think at that point, with 1 year left, I actually do see Tottenham accepting it.
Yeah, me as well, to be honest. I've kind of had the feeling throughout the window that a deal will get done at some point, and it looks as though they're closer than ever right now. So we will have to see how the next 24 hours goes. The deadline is midnight tonight. So strap yourselves in. We'll see you all very soon. That is your transfer update. Let me know in the comment section below, do you think Harry Kane will end up going to Bayern Munich? Like, subscribe and comment, and we'll see you next time.